Hey guys, Raul here with another episode of Cold Emails, Hot Takes, and this one is a special one. We're joined by one of the co-founders of Instantly, my friend, one of the best meme collector that I know, always sending funny stuff. And Reio, nice to have you on the podcast, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
And like usually, like with other guests, I'm not as familiar, so we do a little small talk, some here and there stuff. But with you, I think we can just get into it. And I want to talk mostly about before Instantly, how we grew our lead generation agency, Sales Feed. And Reio was one of the main managers, day-to-day co-founders there as well. So let's get started like straight up front for Sales Feed. How did you get clients? How did you, like, what kind of targets did you had? Who did you target? What kind of tools did you use to get new clients for Sales Feed?
So we pretty much targeted like everyone at first, and then we kind of landed on a few niches that really seemed to work for us. And the main things I can recall right away were like coaches as one like surprising one that I don't see many people talk about. So like especially like business coaches, lifestyle coaches, and that type of coaches. And then probably like one of the most popular ones that everyone goes after is like other marketing agencies. So we had like pretty good success with like TikTok agencies. And when we did that, TikTok was like a lot newer than it is right now as well. So I think it might be a bit harder right now, but basically I would say like marketing agencies and coaches were like the best niches that we landed on. But we started out like basically just like firing everywhere to see like kind of what sticks.
And like once you were going through different kind of clients and you actually had to manage them, what would you say were the easiest clients and the hardest ones that you would recommend people to avoid?
Yeah, so that's a really good point actually. Like in terms of clients, it's actually really important to find the clients that have like valid or good offers. Because if a client has a good offer, it's like super easy to offer service to them, get clients for them. It sounds pretty obvious, but it's like at first when you're trying to like get everyone on board who's like interested in your service, you will end up with people that have like really bad websites. They have really basic offers with like nothing interesting to it, and getting clients to them is going to be like super hard. So you're going to have to like play around with copies, try some like angles that you normally wouldn't have to use. And yeah, so that's kind of the main thing is like I would suggest like vetting your clients more carefully as well, like getting the ones that like show promise that like basically you would buy from them yourself as well. And that's going to make your life like as an agency like 10 times more easy.
Yeah, really good points. And I think like we figured it out slowly as we were going through it. And there were some interesting examples. For example, we worked with one smaller ad agency that worked with only sustainable e-commerce stores. And we thought it's going to be super hard. Like it's so niche, but it turned out to be one of our easiest clients because it's like so niche and it resonated straight away with the clients. So don't just like disregard if you see something like funky or something you haven't used to. You can always try it out. And once like in the sales feed, me, Niels, Alex were doing the sales calls. Once we closed the client and got them through the door, how did you onboard them? What happened on the onboarding call? What kind of information did you get from them to make them like understand you can actually help them and get them leads?
Yeah, so at first like we had an onboarding call, and the main like goal in the onboarding call was to just understand their like value proposition, their targets and everything like as clearly as possible. So you just ask a ton of questions and also let them ask questions from you. So you just want to have like the clearest overview ever of what they want. And one good thing you can also do is if you're using like, let's say Apollo or whatever like lead finding tool you're using, use these same filters that they have to ask questions from your client, so that like you already know what kind of filters to use based on their answers. So there's no like guesswork if they give you like differing answers and stuff. And that's going to help you later on as well, because you can always like show them that you're targeting exactly who you agreed to target, and there's not going to be like any miscommunications there. And other than that, that was like pretty much it. So like just understanding the offer really well, finding out all the targeting, all the value props, everything. And then we just had like a week time of warming up all the accounts and writing all the copies and like finding all the targets. And then we usually had like another call or just like an email thread where we like showed all the copies, showed all the targets, everything. We like got in this week. And then we agreed on everything and basically got like the final green light, and that was like the onboarding part.
Perfect. And so there's this like period for every lead generation agency that if you start with cold email, if you get new email accounts for your client, it's like this 2 weeks where nothing really happens. How did you solve that? What were you doing in those 2 weeks?
Yeah, so from like the client's part, that's like just a communications thing. So you got to let them know that it's gonna like take some time. So they're not gonna expect to get like leads or like responses right from like the next day or whatever. So you just got to be super clear about like the ramp up time, that it's gonna take like 2 weeks. We're gonna warm up the accounts. We're gonna write the copies, find the leads, basically prepare the entire thing. So mainly it's like, yeah, from their side, it's a communication thing. And from your side, it's exactly what I just said. It's just like getting everything ready. So you're going to need copies. And with copies, it's not just writing like one or two of them. You want to write like a bunch of them, like I'd say like close to 20. And later on, you're going to test all of them out. So yeah, that's what you're going to do in that time.
Yeah, I think it's perfect. Like it's like don't just like wait those 2 weeks. There's like so much to do. So just like use that time for that client and be in communication and be upfront about them. That it's going to take a little bit of time. But now let's get into like the technical side. So once you get a new client, you've onboarded them, you went through the onboarding call. Now it's time to buy the domains and get them email accounts. So where did you buy domains? How many did you get? And how did you like set them up? Did you use Google Workspace, Soho? How does that work?
Yeah, so like I'm personally a big fan of just going with like the major big players and not like trying to find the cheapest solution and like alternatives everywhere. So that's what I recommend to our users now as well. It's just like go with Google, get the domains from GoDaddy. Well, obviously with domains it's a bit more simple. Like there's not so much like difference in between all of these providers. But I would just say like get Google accounts. Like Zoho works really well as well, and we ended up using a lot of Zoho accounts as well. But just like if I had to choose, I would always go with Google. And yeah.
And how many domains would you get for a client, and how many email accounts per domain?
Yeah, so that depended a lot on the client as well. Like we basically agreed on how many domains they wanted, depending on how many like leads they wanted. So we calculated it kind of backwards. Like if the client said they wanted like 10 leads per month, we kind of thought like, okay, this is how many emails we need to send. So that means we need this many email accounts, and this means we need this many domains. But usually it was like I'd say around 5 to 10 domains per client. And then we did like 3 to 5 email accounts per domain. So usually we started up doing just like 3 accounts per domain. And if we wanted to scale volume, we just like added a few more email accounts to the existing domains and then got like more domains and so on. But we usually started off by just like, let's say 5 domains and 3 accounts per domain. So 15 accounts, email accounts total.
Got it. And once you have those email accounts connected instantly, you enable the warm up, and then you get into the writing, the copywriting part. So you mentioned for some it was like 10. What was like the typical number? Like how many campaigns did you do? Did you do different angles? And how many emails per sequence did you add?
Yeah, so I think a really good like visual representation to this would be in our copywriting guide. So if you go to the Instant Accelerator, go to copy and read like the copywriting masterclass. So we have like all these kinds of strategies there, and that's kind of the angle we had in the agency as well. We wrote like, let's say 15 different copies based on different strategies. So like some of them were longer, some of them were shorter, of them were like straight to the point, some of them were like more vague, some asked for a call like directly, some were just asking for interest. So like all kinds of different angles. And then once you start sending and you see like one angle performs the best, then you can create like another variation based on that winning one and just like keep iterating, keep moving forward. And you can just throw those like ones that don't work at all away. And basically, yeah. And the one interesting thing is like it depends a lot on the client, because like the same approach didn't work for everyone. So it's not like you're gonna find like a winning copy and then just use that for everyone. It was like really different for all clients, and yeah, so it's like a big testing thing.
Yeah, like my favorite sentence is like when somebody asks me how many campaigns does it take to find a winner, like as many as it takes. You should consistently be working.
Yeah.
And there was also something that we incorporated, right? Was like a daily block in your calendar where just like write copy. Like this was one of the biggest levers you can change and like work with people. A lot of time clients like don't like something, want to change something. So it's a little bit like back and forth and communication to make it work. But now we have the email accounts, we have the warm up, we have the sequences. How many emails per sequence did you usually add?
So do you mean like leads per sequence or like
No,
the steps?
the steps, yeah.
Yeah, so we usually did like at first we had like 4. So they were like the first initial email with like all the core info. Basically, you want the first one to be like the strongest. Obviously, those get like the biggest number of replies, and all the other steps are kind of like follow-ups and like hopes to get a response. So basically, we had like the first one was like the initial main email. The second one was just like a follow-up, like a quick bump, like hope this email didn't get buried. And the third one was like again offering some more info based on the first one, just adding some case studies, something like that, just like another info add. And then the fourth one was like a breakup email where we just attempted like either it was just again like a quick bump, or it was something like a joke, or just like we tried basically like anything, because that's kind of your like last attempt to get a response. And that's what we see with our data as well now. Basically, very little responses come in going on from the fourth step. So usually like the fourth, fifth step is kind of your last attempt. It's like the chance to get a reply from that point on is pretty low.
Makes sense. And once you have the sequence set up, you have all the steps. For the scheduling part, did you do something fancy? Did you just send them on the work hours? Did you use weekends? What did you do?
Yeah, so nothing fancy, but just one thing is like you kind of want to make sure that your leads are separated based on their location, because you want to send during the working hours of the leads, right? That if you're going to take like them from all over the world, they're going to be different. So you want to make sure that they're set up in the campaigns correctly, so everyone gets their emails when they're working. So that's kind of the only fancy thing, just splitting them up. But other than that, we did test sending on the weekends as well, and it wasn't really worth it. We saw like all the open rates, reply rates dropped. And we decided to just keep sending on weekdays.
Got it. And after scheduling, we have the options part in instantly. There, did you do anything fancy? Did you use the default settings? And what were the email sending limits that you used per email account?
Yeah, so the sending limits basically were like around 20 to 30 emails per day per email account. So that's like cold emails only. And we just split up the campaign volume. So let's say you add like 10 email accounts to the campaign, then we made sure that the whole campaign's volume is like 200 to 300, because it's like divides them over all these email accounts. And other than that, like the settings were pretty much all the default stuff. And we didn't really need the delivery optimization part, because we already wrote all our emails in plain text. And basically how we dealt with open tracking is that we had like 1 or 2 campaigns with open tracking on, so we could like see the open rate and like kind of get an idea of the overall health. But for all the other campaigns, we had them off. So that's kind of how we worked with the open rates. And other than that, yeah, that's pretty much like all the default settings that we have now.
Got it. And you mentioned 20 to 30 per email account per day that you were sending. Once that 2-week warm-up period was over, did you start sending 20 straight away, or did you ramp it up slowly?
Yeah, great question. So we ramped it up slowly, and that's what we now recommend to like all users as well. You can get away with just going straight to the max volume of like 30 cold emails per day. You can get away with it, but I would say it's always a better idea to do it slowly. So like, for example, first day you send 5 emails per account per day, and then you just monitor results. If the results look good, open rates, reply rates look decent, you just increase it, let's say by another 5. And this way you kind of slowly move towards the maximum sending limit. And there's no like rule in this. You don't have to do it with like increments of 5, but just the point that you don't have these like, you know, like big jumps in the email sending graph, basically, because these look like super unnatural. And it's better to keep it like smooth either way, if you're going up or you're going down.
Got it. And once the campaigns were launched and you were like ramping them up, and then can you give us an example of how would you like optimize the campaigns? If you see that campaign isn't performing, what would you do? When would you kill it off? How long would you like mess with it to make it work?
Yeah, so basically one way you can kind of tell if it's just like this campaign or like the accounts in general is if you see like all the campaigns are doing bad. That's a pretty good indicator that there's something wrong with the accounts or like the domains. And then what you want to do is stop cold email outreach completely, or just like tone it down to like the minimal volume. Let's say go back to that like 5 emails per day per account, and then just let warm up run. So you basically like treat these accounts as brand new. You let warm up run, and then you start scaling back in slowly and see if that fixes it. Usually it does. And for this reason in the agency, we always had like backup domains and backup accounts that were just warming up in case this happened. So we could like swap them out and we didn't have this like, let's say like a 2-week downtime. But let's say if you have like 10 campaigns and only one of them is performing really bad and the others are fine, then I would just consider like stopping that campaign completely. It's just showing that it probably doesn't work, either like the copy or the leads or something. So I would always rather like put more volume into the good ones that already work rather than trying to like save the ones that don't work and like trying to make them work basically.
And let's say I have a really good performing campaign. How would I scale it up? Can I just like increase my email sending limits?
Yeah, so I would just get more email accounts to like have the campaign send out more volume. And if you don't have email accounts to take from other campaigns, for example, I would just create new ones or like buy more domains, more email accounts, and put those in there. So you don't really want to push the sending limits of the accounts that you already have, because then you're gonna end up like hurting your sending reputation, and that's not gonna be good for you. So yeah, I would just get more domains, more email accounts, basically.
Got it. And when you were monitoring the campaigns, what was the main metric that you were optimizing for?
So main metric is always like positive replies, but until you have those, it just goes like down from the hierarchy. So basically, positive replies is what you always want. If you don't have those, look at just replies. If you don't have those, look at open rates, and that's kind of what you're optimizing for. But ideally, you just want to optimize for positive replies. So let's say you have two campaigns. One of them has like 10% reply rate, the other has 5%. If you just look at reply rates, the 10% one is better. But let's say all of the replies you got from the 10% one are like, no thanks. So that's not helpful. And those really don't like count in a sense. So I would always look for the campaigns where those positive leads are coming in from, and basically treat those as like winners, even if like the open rates were worse or whatever.
Yeah. And just like a background on the agency, we're selling like price per lead. So when we get a positive lead, that was like money for us, and then was when the client took over. But if you have your own business, your own agency, I would even not even like a positive reply. I would just aim for revenue, actual closes, like scale those campaigns where you're actually getting money. Even if you get like positive response, if they're all like tire kickers, you don't get anything from it, it's not worth it. So yeah, what's the most important thing for your business? Use revenue, optimize for that. And now we've gone from like the start, we've been adding the email accounts and warm them up. We have the sequences. We've optimized. Some campaigns are working. We're getting positive responses in. So how did you manage the unibox responding to the leads? Do you have any tips for people?
Yeah, so for our agency, what you just said, we had like once a positive reply came in, so that was just someone saying like, okay, I'm interested in your service. We just forwarded those to the client. We just had client with access to the unibox. Back then we didn't have that, but basically the client was just responding to these positive leads. So we kind of like didn't really have to manage like the replies themselves. We didn't have to reply. But depending on how you have that set up, you may want to have to like reply as well, because some people charge based on like meetings booked, and they have to like do the meeting booking the meeting part as well. So for you now, the unibox is like a total game changer and like a lifesaver. So make use of that for sure.
Yeah, agreed. I wish we would have had the unibox like in our agency. And now thinking back of like the agency side and how we dealt with like different clients, can you give some like specific examples or insights for clients that didn't work and you were able to make it work with some kind of like a new copywriting angle, new lead source? Do you have anything that you remember?
Yeah, so it was mostly just like testing and like figuring out more targets. So basically, let's say you have the onboarding call, you agree on some targets, you agree on some like value props, and you then like start running the service, and you see it's not really working. So instead of just like giving up right away, going to like refunds or whatever, one thing we did with some clients was like do another onboarding call basically, and try to figure out more targets, more like angles, more ideas on how we could like approach people. And oftentimes this ended up like kind of saving the entire thing. We came up with some better angles. We saw that, okay, we could actually target outside of these countries, because a lot of clients were like, okay, I only want to target Australia, right? And we started like discussing like, okay, maybe what if you're going to do like West Coast as well, just give it a go. And that ended up working really well. So just like trying to like think outside of the box and not even just being like super stuck in what has been working so far. So let's say client says all our clients are from Australia. Maybe they've just tried Australia. So you never really know before you try. And then on top of that, just like copy angles, just like offering some kind of value up front, not just asking like, do you want to have a call, but asking like, can I send over a Loom? Or I did like a quick walkthrough of your site, what could be improved, all that kind of stuff. So like basically coming up with stuff you can offer like right away in the first email already that's like valuable to the people you're contacting.
Got it. Yeah. So it's again comes down to just like testing, not giving up, and being open with your client. If you have an agency, like they want clients to, they want what's best for them. So you can work it out together, find a compromise, and just try different things. Usually people love that actually, that you're proactive and willing to do this stuff, not giving up easily. And one thing we didn't cover yet is the leads part. So what tool did you use to get leads for clients? Did you use like different options? How did that system work usually?
Yeah, so our like bread and butter was Apollo. That did like basically all the heavy lifting, and surprisingly, it worked like super well for us. There were a bunch of clients that had like specific needs for like targeting that Apollo couldn't really well do. So one example was SaaS, like SaaS companies. Not sure if we're just like bad at filtering Apollo, but like all the SaaS leads were like kind of meh in Apollo. So for that, we had to like move to other places. I think Crunchbase was like one really good way to get like SaaS leads. So we used that. But other than that, we did like LinkedIn scraping, lead hype, find email, all that kind of stuff as well. But I would say like 80%, and especially the beginning, we pretty much only used Apollo. And that's what we recommend to our users now as well. I think it's like it's super simple, it's easy to get into, and yeah, so that's kind of like the main one.
And when you like onboarded users, did you straight away got them like thousands of leads? Was it like a day-to-day thing where you went out and like build those lead lists in Apollo?
Yeah, so we that was like kind of an ongoing thing, and like the whole part of like service delivery, because we were like you don't want to like export every lead in advance and then just find out that this one's not working at all, and maybe you've spent like all the credits, now you just have this massive lead list that you may find use for later, but it's like kind of useless as of now. So what we did was we like scraped these leads on an ongoing basis. So let's say we took like 200 per niche and then sent out all these emails. And then once we see what's like working, what's the winner, then we just went in and exported more of that type of lead. And then also like tried different targeting and stuff. So that was like kind of a ongoing thing for us.
Perfect. And I think we've covered much everything now from start to finish with the agency side. So you do a bunch of webinars. You're the most active in our Facebook group. What's something you've noticed people ask a lot that you want to like clear, you want to talk about, that you feel would help a lot of people getting into cold email?
Yeah, so I think like the main thing I see is people just being stuck in like specifics and just being like not actually going out and doing running the campaigns and like actually seeing based on real life results. They're kind of stuck in like the planning phase. They're like trying to figure out what open rates should they aim for, what kind of domain names should they get. Like I would say if you have like a good offer and you go into and like test all kinds of different copies, that all like the planning part is like not that important. So it's much better to just get through it, like just get like whatever domain names you have in your head, and don't get like stuck into like all this small stuff basically. And yeah, so that's kind of the main thing. And then like the first thing I mentioned is also like going with the bigger players. I see a lot of people like, obviously it makes sense that people are like trying to save money, cut some costs. But what I see often happening is as well like people going with like email service providers that I've like never heard of, and then they have like some specific problems like, okay, this new email service provider I'm trying has this error and this kind of blocked me into this and that, and then it's like super tough to troubleshoot because no one else uses it. They can't find anyone else like helping them out, and they just like have so many headaches with these alternative choices that they find somewhere. So that's one thing I would recommend to people. It's just like it's better to invest a couple bucks extra and go with like the ones that we know work, that we already see people like, let's say, using Google and GoDaddy, and they're getting really good results. So just go with those. You don't like have to like reinvent the wheel. And so yeah, those are like kind of the two main things I see, I guess.
Perfect. Yeah, I would say the same, man. Just like action, don't worry about it. We're just sending emails. And if you're starting out, just stick to one plan. Just select like the instantly way, whatever course, just keep with it. Don't get bogged down of all the different options. Once you've gone through the iterations, couple of months, you already know it, then start testing new things. In the beginning, just stick with the basics. And yeah, that's it from my part. Thank you so much, Reio. It was a pleasure having you on, and see you on the next video. Cheers.
Yeah, see you guys.